Because I kind of like some of the easiness that finds me sitting up front, not having to fight over a seat up front, as opposed to my friends that like to sit in this section back here. That's no shame. I'm here having a conversation, but I don't see what everyone else sees because I'm just up front. Now, if you're like me, and there's this thing called ADHD, which is a real thing. I sent Lisa a text today, and I got about 5 different conditions that all have abbreviations like letters. And I'm just like, okay, let's just add them up. You know, it's ridiculous. I feel like I'm doing the alphabet on me every time. And so, but ADHD, and that means basically there's a lot of parts in my brain that don't want to wire, and they get real jumbled. And now you know, if you don't know, why I am the way I am. But I can't fix that. I can work with it. And God said I'm still going to use it. And I don't understand that, but he does. But when I'm in the middle of things and I got 5 things, and those that work with me know that it's a struggle. Sometimes Miss Jan comes back a day or maybe at the end of the day and says, did you ever? And I'm like, oh man, I forgot. I've learned that it's not so much absent-mindedness as I got too many things going at once and I can't process everything. What does that mean in English? Well, at the end of the day, we just got to remember it's an audience of me and God. No matter how we're built, wired, or whatever, don't worry about what so-and-so and so-and-so and this and this. It's you and God. And whether that you're here or whether you're up there or whether you're up there, really don't worry about that. It's you and God. You know, we don't go in a way that removes the element of who we're living for because of what we're living for. So you come to verse 2, it says, when you give. By the way, you'll see a lot of these when you pray, when you fast. It's not if, because this is expected in Christian living, if you didn't know that. And that may rock your boat when it comes to fasting, but yeah, when you fast, when you give. So when you give, not if you give, for anybody here that thinks it's a bad thing to give generously or give what you know the Lord is due, or if you want to go excessive in various ways, that's a good message in itself about various ways we give. But nonetheless, when you give to someone in need, so now we're zeroing in on this situation, don't do as the hypocrites do, okay? And look at this, the audacity, blowing trumpets like we're some prince or king as we enter into this town, this city. Open the gates, here I come. And Jesus goes to this extreme because really and truthfully, he's saying this, and most people are like, that's not me. But notice what he says. He says, you do it in church. That's what I'm reading from this. Synagogues are the religious centers. So in our terms today, that's church. In the streets, and that's the way of life. So really it comes down to pretty much everything I do. I'm in the streets, I'm in way of life, but I'm also in church. And so whether I'm doing it in a place that's recognizable for God or whether it's not, do I blow trumpets to call attention to my very acts of charity? The charity is good. It's the heart of what we're doing that gets us in trouble. So Jesus just goes deeper on them and just really lowers the boom. I tell you the truth, they've received their reward. So I'm here and I do one of these things that I do at church. If it's a sermon or maybe, you know, somebody said, hey, I heard you did this the other day. That's nice. And I did it for the wrong reason. That's 1 Corinthians 3, 12 through 15, wood, hay, and stubble, gold, silver, precious stone. The manifestation of what came from the heart. Some last, some burn up, and they don't mean anything. The Bible speaks to that as being a reward that's there at the end, and then one that's not a reward at all. And so they suffer loss, the Bible says. They thought they had something, and it's not there. And that's the danger of what we think. I went to church, I did this, and if you wear it as a badge, Jesus basically says, because you're drawing attention to yourself. And a lot of times people think, yeah, that's what they do. But if you're a social media person and you go back, David and I were talking about this today. I said, David, you ever go back and see? Because I don't get notifications. I put stuff on. I have Facebook. I put stuff on, but I purposely, because of the ADHD thing, remember, an OCD and everything else for that matter, I don't have time for all the notifications. Good night. It just overwhelms me. And so I just try not to do that. And if I go back, but I wonder if anybody saw what I shared. Let me go back. Now, again, what I shared, like, for example, this morning, last night, boy, Last 2 days have been a little bit of a blur. You got to forgive me. And it wasn't anything bad, I promise. I was okay. Nothing crazy. But, yeah, shared that Francis Chan video. You need to watch that if you haven't. And that was the other day. But I shared that video. And the temptation, I wonder if anybody liked it. Does it really matter if anybody did or didn't? No. That's really not the point of why you put it up there, is it, Pete? That's the question you got to ask. If it's about, I want to be seen. If it's, I want to make sure people know about Jesus and the gospel. Okay. See the motivation? Same thing. The video was, but why was it put up? Why did I share that verse? Why did I do what I did? It can be seriously in good intention until it starts becoming about my brand, my name, my person, me, until we look like those birds on Finding Nemo and everything's mine. Attention seeking. It's a dangerous thing. So he speaks to these hypocrites, actors, performers, i.e. fake. He talks about how that can get into the church as well as in everyday life. So what do? How do we come to rectify all this? Well, good, because that's verses 3 through 4. I'm glad Jesus shows us and conveys to us not only what could be the danger in life, but he tells us this is what it looks like. So, but when you give to someone in need, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's an interesting way of putting it, because I had to literally go science on this one because I don't know how. This is where Lisa comes in, and I don't know. I know the answer, central nervous system. I understand there's a brain kind of wiring all that. So I had to do a little lookup because I didn't go to UCF to get a degree in science. So here we go. Ready? The brain and central nervous system sync the left and right hand through a process where the left hemisphere controls the right hand and the right hemisphere controls the left hand, with sensory information crossing over to the opposite side of the brain. This cross-wiring allows for coordinated movement and communication between the two sides of the body. Can I translate what Jesus just said? Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. He's saying you got to do something that's abnormal. And you're not going to get that unless you think about the way you're wired. You're already wired that everything's supposed to work that way. I heard people say, well, it's a metaphor for, no, I think it's really meaning what he said. Jesus is the one that, he's the one that put us together, right? He knows all that stuff. He didn't have to look that up. He knows how our central nervous system is. He knows how our brain thinks, right? So he says, don't let this guy know what this guy's up to and vice versa. Well, that's not natural. That's not normal. He said, I want you to do something you're not seeing. I want you to do something that's countercultural because in the natural flesh, you're not going to want to do this because you're going to be self-seeking. That's what everybody else does. That's pride. That's sin at the end of it. That's the core of it. And we're all sinners by nature, the Bible speaks to. So what do? We do it the Jesus way. We tap into his spirit on the regular so that we don't let the left hand know and vice versa, because that would be abnormal. Yeah, it's a change. Dare we say it's uncomfortable even, because I don't know how to do that normally. I mean, that's all I always do. Well, maybe we need to change the way we think and to change the way we act. That's what that speaks to, because it starts here and it manifests itself in my hands and the way action works. But it starts internally through that process. So I think Jesus is speaking of much more than most people ever let on. But that's, again, my take on it. And I'll answer if I'm wrong. But I think I'm right on this one, because God's really knew way before any scientists ever figured this out. God already knew when he put all the hardwire together inside of us. So here's what we know. He said, don't let you, this is how it's supposed to be. In other words, it needs to be secretive. It needs to be less public. It needs to be with the right motives. And that's what he speaks to there. Give your gifts in private. Give your gifts in private. Anonymity. Well, what's the fun in that? Man, glory to God, it's everything. But I want them to know. Okay. I want them to know. And sometimes that's a good thing, depending. But not in the case of the kingdom advancement. Give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you. Now, we already saw a situation where,
I did something and Garrett thought it was great. So that's my reward. No offense to Garrett, but Garrett, he liked it and he thought it was good. Well, maybe one day, it's not just Garrett, but maybe, Garrett got excited and then Miss Lowe came up to me. I said, no, okay, so now I got two. Two are better than one, right? Well, until it becomes an ego thing. That's my reward. In other words, I get to heaven and I go, hey, isn't that great? Remember that one time, God, I did this, and two people came up and he said, well, yeah, that's where it ended because motive was bad. I don't have anything for you. Can you imagine? You're coming up there and, I've got Prince Ali in my head for you old school Aladdin people, and, make way, here comes PD, or whatever, I don't know. And I'll blow the trumpets, and next thing you know, God says, sit down. Sit down. It's not about that. Boy, you want to talk about checking you? It's good stuff. And I read this, and I think about all the things that probably went on since I was 9 years old, and I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And that's a lot of decades ago. And I wonder how much of the things that I really thought were going to matter in the kingdom never got there because it became about me. It's sobering, isn't it? Who am I living for? Manifested by, what am I living for? It really grabs your attention. And when you come back to it, I sent this text to Lisa this morning about this because it just blew me away. Because giving speaks to loving others. Well, that's the second commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. Notice that. Isn't it interesting when you think about that in this context? In other words, as big as you value your price tag you put on yourself, that's how much you should love others. Because that kind of peels the sticker off of you a little bit, but you need to see it in real terms, and we know that. But he says the first and the great commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind. And so when we do it in secret, the way God designed it, that's when we really see the love of Christ in us. Because it can't be for us if it's done in secret. I want to caution us about the spirit of comparison. I want to caution us about the spirit of